card, you don't know who you're talking to.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gloria Spence, and I am a SCORE counselor, and I'd like to introduce you today to QuickBooks Desktop Basics. And our presenter today is Deborah Vode. Yesterday, we did a presentation on the online basics, and so if any of you have come back today, I welcome you back. So first of all, I'm going to introduce you to SCORE a little bit. SCORE is a nonprofit organization with over 70 volunteers with a wide range of expertise and experience. When we were doing this live and in person, we had 20 different locations throughout the Boston area. So of course, now we're doing video, phone, and email, of course. And the other focus that we have is 100 workshops in the greater Boston area. And again, we used to do those in the libraries and chamber areas, and all of ours are now webinars. We are affiliated with the Small Business Administration. And so we have chapters all over the country with over 10,000 volunteers. Mentoring by phone virtually, and what we primarily do is meet with business owners at any phase of your business. So if you are interested in meeting with one of our counselors, we can help you with a variety of areas, not just QuickBooks and not just accounting and finance, but definitely in those areas. And we have counselors who can meet with you to talk about marketing, how to improve your marketing, your website, how to increase your sales, how to navigate through the pivot of the pandemic. So if you have an interest in meeting with one of our clients or one of our counselors, you can email us, find a mentor on our website. You can give us a call at our phone, which we will have show it up at the end of the presentation. And also too, you can let us know in the chat that you would be interested in meeting with somebody, or if you would be willing to want to meet with any of us, that would be great. Let us know in an email, or again, sign up for an appointment on a website or give us a phone call. We'd be happy to meet with you and help you with more aspects of your business than just QuickBooks, but we're also here for that as well. Okay, so a little bit of housekeeping. We prefer that you use the Q&A to ask your questions, and we will be using chat, but the formal questions we do like for you to put them in there. We will address the questions as they relate to the topic that we are currently speaking of, and then we'll save the other questions for later on in the presentation. We are recording this, so you will have it available to you online later on, and we do make the slide deck available after the webinar as well. We do have a little 2 or 3 question short survey at the end of the webinar, and we do ask that you respond very quickly. Your feedback is important to us. So there's the quick Q&A for the questions, and for comments, we will be using the chat. And a little bit about Deborah. Debbie is the CEO and founder of Harmony Bookkeeping Company, and she's located in Natick. She offers a number of great services, and I'm going to let her speak to her own qualifications. We've had Debbie do some presentations for us in the past, and so I will turn it now over to Deborah.
Good morning. Well, thanks so much. Thanks, Gloria. Thanks, Teresa. Thank you for everyone coming today. And again, a welcome to anyone who joined us yesterday, folks who might be looking at both QBO and QBD as we call them, and they wanted to see both sides. So today will be the second half of that. And yes, so I'm Debbie Vode. Let me go ahead and share my screen and see if I can pull what I have. Here we go. So Harmony Bookkeeping is the name of my business. As Gloria said, we're located in Natick. We work with small and medium-sized businesses and doing everything from helping those new business owners first get established in whatever QuickBooks version they use. Sometimes we help clients with quarterly check-ins. Otherwise, we do monthly bookkeeping, even weekly in some cases. And we have a nice variety of clients in and around Massachusetts area and a few that are outside. And let's get started with today. So I thought I'd put up an agenda to give you an idea, pretty quickly, I'll move off the slides and we'll go right into QuickBooks. And Teresa, if you want to go ahead and put that link, or maybe just a minute, I'm going to be using one of the QuickBooks Desktop examples that will be shown on the screen. If you have a second monitor and you like the idea of following along on your own, Teresa will go ahead and post that link so that you can do that on your own. It's not necessary. It's just for folks who have the second screen and want to go ahead and do it that way. So while we're there, we'll do a dashboard tour. So we'll just get familiar with what you see when you first log in. We'll talk about the chart of accounts, including the must-haves. We'll go over the customer center and the vendor center. The nice thing about QuickBooks and Desktop and Online is they're both very similar. So it's, once you learn one, you actually know both. We'll talk about the account reconciliation process, why we do it, why it's important, how it's done. We'll talk about running the financial reports, the big three: profit and loss, also known as income statement, balance sheet, and actually the third one could either be your accounts receivable if you have billings that you do, your statement of cash flows. Maybe in some cases you have 4 that you run. We'll talk a little bit about setting up classes and how you use them. And then if we've got some time, we'll just get to some efficiency tools such as setting up a bank rule and recurring transactions. And Teresa, I think, was going to put that up. So we're going to go into Carl's computer shop. I'm actually going to change screens here. And if you can let me know, do you now see QuickBooks on my screen?
Yes, we do.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So this is a site that's available to everybody. This is, some people call it a QuickBooks sandbox. This is for desktop. There's also one for online. And this is where you can go in and you can pick what kind of industry maybe that is most similarly related to yours. If we look up here, we've got lots of different things: contractor, manufacturer, wholesale, advanced inventory. I think there's even nonprofit in the list, retail, which is what we're going to do today, and service-based. So you can go here and you can go in and you can play. There's some data in there already, which is nice, as you'll see, because then when you're in there, you can go ahead and run some reports and have some data in there. You can add data to it, so you can practice a little bit, and just know when you do leave, anything you put in there is going to be wiped out. So if you wanted to put something in there to show someone you work with the next day, it's going to be wiped out. So it's good for the period of time that you're in there. So we're going to go ahead and pick the retail tracker, or the retail tracking. I think it takes just a minute or a few seconds for this to come up. This is Carl's computer shop. And we'll let Carl up, and there we go. Almost there, and I will.
Can I have people put in chat? Are people able to connect to the link that I gave? I just, if you would, if anyone would like to reply, I have someone saying that they're having issues. We could just get a consensus on that, if anyone's having any difficulties with that.
All right. Is it okay if I keep going, Teresa, or do you want to wait?
Yeah, people are saying they're okay, so go ahead.
Okay, great. So I'll give a minute, and while your eye kind of takes in a lot of what's going on here, you take a look and we'll break it down. Not everybody's dashboard will look like this. You are able to customize it so that you have the icons that show that are important to you and your business. But this is what they offer. So there's a lot that's going on here. And I will show you the 3 different ways you get to the different centers. One thing QuickBooks does beautifully, I think, is give you multiple ways to do the same thing. And you can find the one that speaks to you most or is kind of easiest in your workflow. But we see this part here is what's called the vendor center. And in here are generally things you would have that are related to a vendor: entering bills, putting through purchase orders, entering bills against inventory, paying them. So here's your vendor center right here. Middle of the screen is customers. So things that you may be, things you may do on QuickBooks with your customers, including accepting credit cards and payments, creating an invoice, running a statement, giving a refund. So just really handy right here for you. And then the bottom part is where we have the employees. This is actually if you're using QuickBooks to run your payroll. If you don't have employees or you use another payroll service, this is not an area I would anticipate that you would use. So that's for the people who utilize that service that's offered by QuickBooks. They offer both the service and then a module where you do it yourself through QuickBooks, as opposed to then I'm helping you with it. And then we have the banking center, and we see we have a deposit that's already there. So we'll talk about that. And then just company information, things that you may need to access, such as your chart of accounts or things like that. So let me just show you, this is the dashboard. So this is where we've got everything. You can also get to the vendor center through the dropdown. You click here. The same with the customer center. We've got the customer center here, but you can go here and get there another way. And the third way is if we look at our shortcuts, let's see if they have it set up. Let me see. Some of these things are a little modified for the sample. And most times in yours, you will also have the links posted here. I can't seem to close what they have there, but you'll have them here. But 2 out of the 3 ways you can see, and that's what you have there. One thing I recommend when you start with this product or any product, just kind of dig into it a little bit before you jump in so you can see all that it has to offer. One of the ways to do that with QuickBooks is to go to Edit and then drop down to Preferences. And we've got a lot going on here. These are the areas that are going to help you to customize QuickBooks to suit you best. And some are actually going to help you become more efficient. So I do think it's worth the time to spend, 10, 15, 20 minutes going in and clicking on each one of these and seeing what does it mean to me, if anything. But there's a couple that I thought I would point out in particular. And we can start at the top with accounting. Because you can have multiple users in your QuickBooks, they have each one of these settings allows you to set the preferences by the individual user, because when they log in, they'll have their desktop and they might like things one way, where another user might like it another way. So you can set it personally for a preference, or company preferences, which means that everyone's going to experience it the same way. So anything we look at today, we're going to look at the company side. One thing I'll mention offhand, because we will look at the chart of accounts in a moment, is to use account numbers. Will it let me? All right, it's not going to let me. But I would encourage everybody, when you set up the chart of accounts, and we'll talk about that, set account numbers. You can go online, find a listing of generally used account numbers for this very purpose. And this is the reason why. If you don't have account numbers in your chart of accounts, it ends up being sorted alphabetically. Alphabetically is not really a great way to organize your bookkeeping. There are certain groupings that you can use, like everything that starts with 18 would be an equity section, or everything that starts with 15, such as 150 for your account number, or 157, would be for another purpose. It's going to group it better. It's going to make it more clear. And as you get comfortable in your bookkeeping, it's going to actually make it faster, because you'll be remembering your numbers to the different accounts and being able to key that in. And you're going to hit that count exactly, as opposed to typing in the words, where if you have 2 accounts that have similar names, it's just going to make it a little bit slower. So I do encourage you to use account numbers. If you don't use them now, implement them. If you have them already, that's terrific. You can implement them at any time. So I wanted to point out that. I'm just going to keep on my little checklist here, because I want to make sure that I show you everything that I want to show you. I saw the view when we look at the desktop view. And this is where we look to see kind of what we want to see. When do we want multiple windows? Yes, you do. And we'll see why. And, save when closing. Yes, we always want to save. Anytime you do any substantial work in your QuickBooks, you want to back it up. I encourage you to back it up on the machine that you're using, but also back it up either in the cloud if you have access through a Google account or Dropbox or one of the other online providers. And then also if you've got something like, a memory stick, back it up on that, take it home with you. Don't leave it in the office. You want to make sure, because when you're using QuickBooks Desktop, unlike online, everything you use is in that one computer, and you don't ever want to have all your financial information on one computer in case it crashes or something happens. So you want to make sure that you always back up multiple times. So setting it to save when closing company, it will prompt you and it will help remind you to do that. So we can look at some of the other things that they have here. If you don't like the beeping every time you save a transaction, guess what? Great news, you can turn that off. When you are charging sales tax to clients, you can go ahead and set your sales tax. Sometimes you may need multiple tax. Perhaps you do business in multiple states, and you can set up multiple taxes for that as well. So again, going through here is just a really great idea. Finding the ones that speak to you, that mean something to you, and that's going to help you quite a bit. And there's one more that I'm looking here. This is the one I wanted to see, reports and graphs. And this is the setting where you can report if you put your books in cash basis or accrual basis. If you don't know, check with your accountant. He or she will be able to tell you. The nice thing about setting this, again, under reports and graphs, is when you run your financial reports, the report's going to default to whatever basis you have here. And if you're on cash basis, and this is set to accrual, that every time you run your reports, it's going to set it to accrual. You have to remember to toggle it then and do it. This will just set it for you. I'll see if it will let us cash. No, it's not going to let us do anything here. But anyway, you would set it to cash, you would save it and move on. So again, we got here through edit, preferences, and then it goes ahead and gives you a list. Again, time well spent if you go ahead and look at that. So we've talked about the chart of accounts. Let's head over and let's actually look at that. And we can get there through here. And so a chart of accounts, if someone's not familiar with it, and forgive me if everybody is, but I'll just mention it, it's the backbone on which your bookkeeping is built. So all of these are different accounts. They're going to track your income, your expenses, any equity, any liabilities you may have, credit cards, loans, anything like that. Capital equipment. If you have a business where you have machinery or equipment that the company owns, maybe you've got your printer and you've got big printing machinery, maybe you're a physician's office and you've got equipment specific to your practice, you're going to save that in here as well. So we'll just look at a few things we have here. You'll see there are no numbers here. If they were here, they would have been down the left-hand side. QuickBooks will organize it by type. When you create an account, there's types. So we've got all the bank accounts together and things like that. So let's talk about the must-haves when you look at a chart of accounts. And Teresa, can I just pause for a minute and do a check on my pace?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, all right.
Okay. If anyone has any issue, please put it into chat.
Thank you. Sometimes I kick into fast gear and I don't realize it. So here's the chart of accounts. Now I would expect every business owner will have a checking account, maybe a couple, perhaps a savings account, because a lot of times they come with a checking account anyway. So you would have your checking account here. And here's, because this business, Carl, does a cash business. People come into his business. He's got check registers, so he's got that information there as well. Here's his savings account. So I'd expect you to have that set up. Accounts receivable comes with QuickBooks. Even if you are not in a business that sends out invoices, I think that's an account that's going to stay there. Some of these will come automatically when you create your account, and others you can add, and others you can close if they're just not something you're going to use. So we'll take a look at, now Carl's great. He is on the money here. He's got his cars and trucks in there. He's got his fixed assets. He's got some furniture and equipment. Great, great. And just for your knowledge, fixed assets for most of the CPAs I work with is anything you purchase that's more than $2,500. So if it's a desk and it's $600, that's usually considered an expense. If it's a bigger piece of equipment or anything that's over $2,500, then that's something that they will put, your CPA will want you to put into fixed assets, and then they will depreciate. So accounts payable, looks like Carl's got some people he owes money to. That's not a surprise. He's running a business. Look at this. I think this is interesting. He's got gift certificates. That's a liability. That's something that people have paid him for. It's a service that has yet to be delivered. So that is a liability on his books. He's got payroll. So he breaks out his payroll, also liabilities. He's got some money that he's put into the business, his opening balance equity. When he started, Carl's, he put in $1,380 to get his business going. So he wants to track that. That's his part of the business that he owns. And now we'll look at the income piece. Now you can, as a business owner, you can choose how you want to break out income in a lot of different ways. You may have one income account and everything falls into that, and there's no need to divide it, and that's great. You do not need to have multiple income accounts. But if we look at how Carl has it, he's got sales as his overarching account. And then he has some sub accounts because he wants to see exactly where his money comes from. He wants to see how much comes from assemblies and systems or consignment or service and shipping. So he has it set up so he can break that down so that when people pay him, he can take a look, which is going to be nice. And we'll see in a little bit when he looks at his reporting, where I'll give him some totals and to see exactly what areas of his business are bringing in the most revenue. Helps him decide, oh, you know what, this is going great guns. Let me put some more effort there. Let's bring in some more business. I've got a great profit margin. It's a service people clearly need and like. Or he might find one and say, I'd really like to boost up my consignment sales. It's not doing great, but I know there's great money to be made there. I can look at my reports and see where it's at. What do I need to do to boost that? So it's great information when it comes out in the form of a report. And he's got some cost of goods sold, some things that he purchases that he uses as he delivers his service. And as in most businesses, the biggest part of the chart of accounts are the expenses. So probably not a surprise there. He's got, what I see here are very typical what we see. We do see meals and entertainment. A lot of times now in the new accounts, it's just meals. There is no entertainment write-off anymore. It's been gone for a few years, but we've got meals and entertainment. He's got some automobile expense, bad debt, once in a while, things happen. Rental, and we can look down. Some of these might be familiar to you. I would imagine insurance is probably one that you would have on your chart of accounts. Interest expense, most likely. Merchant fees, if you're accepting credit cards, and on it goes. So this is what the chart of accounts looks like for this business. If you haven't set up your QuickBooks yet, and when you go to do it, QuickBooks will ask you what type of business, what industry you're in, and it will make a suggestion as to a chart of accounts. So it will give you a kickstart so you know that. You can also, again, you can Google chart of accounts according to your industry, and you will get no end for suggestions on how you could do that, or certainly check with your accountant. She will be a great help in that. So while we're here, let me show you a couple of things. One is how to add. So if you wanted to add something to your chart of accounts, we're going to go ahead and let's see. No, we're not going to add that. So we're just going to do, here we go. So you can add an income account, an expense account. Those aren't the only types. It could be a fixed asset, a bank account, a loan, may have a loan out, credit card, equity, and there's even a few others in this drop down here. So we'll just pick an expense account. And here we can give it some more detail. So we can call our expense account. Let me type. Oh, there we go. I'm going to put clothing because Carl provides his employees with shirts that have his business name. And for whatever reason, my C key is not working. There we go. Oh, I missed the moment. Oh my goodness, so sorry about that. If I wanted to make clothing a sub-account, maybe it's a sub-account of advertising. I can go ahead and make it a sub-account of advertising. And I could put here, just for my own information or Carl's own information, logo shirts. Oh, I am so sorry. What an unfortunate typo. Okay, everybody laugh and then we got to go past. Okay, sorry about that. And then any other information that you want to go ahead and put there. We're going to save and close. And now we see under marketing and advertising, we have clothing. So we have Carl's logo shirts. If we wanted to go ahead and decide, you know what, Carl says, I'm not going to do that. That's money I don't have to spend right now. Let me go ahead and get rid of that account. We can edit it and we can make it inactive. And off it goes. So that easily. So just adding and editing. And then any of the chart of accounts that come with you, with yours, you can just go ahead and edit out what you think you're not going to need. Please don't remove anything that has money in it. So anything that has, a total, a balance, you definitely don't want to do anything there. So that's what I have with the chart of accounts. Any questions, Teresa, on chart of accounts?
No, I think I've been getting some questions on the difference between accrual and cash, and I think those have been answered and they're in the Q&A if you want to look at those replies.
All right, okay. Terrific. So now we've looked at the chart of accounts. Now we're going to go ahead and look at the products and services that Carl offers. And by that, we're going to choose lists. There are many types of lists that you can keep in QuickBooks, your chart of accounts being one. Your item list, that's what we're going to talk about. You could have price rules. You might have your customer list. You can have lots of things, but now we're going to just look at the item list. These are the services and products of Carl's business. So let me see if I can open this up so you can see this a little bit more. And just so and this is customized. Carl has entered this. This does not come with QuickBooks. This is something you would put in one at a time. So we've got, he's got his consulting and training service, delivery, diagnostic, all the things you would expect to see for his business. He also has some actual inventory, some products, because as he's doing the diagnostic, he might say, you need a new 150, gigabyte hard drive. Guess what? I have one. I have one in stock, and this is how much it is. So he's got everything here. So this needs to be maintained by Carl and his staff. But he's got hard drives and CPUs, monitors, and motherboards, all the things that you could expect, as well as some other things, out-of-state taxes, tax rates are here, things like that. So let's take a look at just how he has his diagnostic service set up. So this is a service. He named it diagnostic service. It's not a sub-item of anything. It doesn't have a barcode, and he bills out at the rate of $95 an hour. And he's marked it as non-taxable. So that's great. He has it what we call mapped to his service account. So when he creates an invoice and someone pays for the service, it's going to map to a service account under income. And then he'll know as he sees that income number go up that this was related. He'll be able to look at diagnostic service and see. And this you'll see is very familiar already. You create a new item, just like we did for a new chart of account. And it'll take us up here and it'll give you an option of what is it. So you can choose what it is. And then you can fill it in. So let's look at a hard drive. So let's just see how this is a little bit different because now this is an inventory item, inventory part. He's named it, not a sub item. He's not using barcode, so he doesn't have that. Now, if we look here, I think this is really interesting too. This is the cost. The hard drive cost him $65. It's going to go in his books under cost of goods sold. He even noted his preferred vendor. So when he goes to reorder, he knows who his vendor is. And he's got how many he's got on hand. This is his sales price. So he makes a nice markup on it. Go Carl. It is taxable. And it goes when it sells, it's going to get logged in his chart of accounts under merchandise. So we saw the other goes under service. This goes under merchandise. Again, it allows him to track what he's earning. Oh, here he's got 98 on hand and his reorder point is 10. So nice bit of information that you can keep right in there if you're a company that deals with inventory, and QuickBooks always looking to make sure we spell things correctly. So that is what we have here. And on this kind of lather, rinse, repeat. So if we open this up a little bit more, just so you can kind of see how it looks. There we go. So this is the item list. And this we found under lists. Let's now look at class list, because we will talk a little bit about classes. So classes is a way to further divide up what's happening in the business. And he has it here by location. So Carl's got two stores. He's got the Bayshore store and the Santa Thomas store. And we'll see how that comes into play. And again, if we look here, add a new class. Now, one thing, you know what, let's go ahead. We're going to modify it a little bit. And we're going to do two new classes. We're going to do Mac. And let's add one for PC. So if he wants to see how much of his business comes from working with Macs versus PC, he now has those there. And if he doesn't want to track by location anymore, we can go ahead and pull those out. And this takes us back again. So we found that lists under class list. And you're welcome again. And I encourage you to always look and see what else is here, what else you've got here. All right, so that's what I have there for setting up with the chart of accounts and going ahead and looking at the lists and looking at the classes. Great. So now let's go ahead and let's go back and let's look at the customer center and let's do up an invoice for one of Carl's customers. Now, earlier, you may remember when we were looking under edit and preferences and talking about multi-window, because it's nice, you know, I think a lot of us like to have lots of windows open. We click here and this will show me what else I have open. So if I wanted to go back to chart of accounts, there's my shortcut. If I wanted to jump back to my item list, or if I was done with my item list for the day, I could close that out. And now I've just got my chart of accounts and home. So the window drop down is a very nice feature, helps you move around a lot. And you can always close out what you're not looking at or what you don't need. So here we have our customer center, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to put in a new customer, and we're going to create an invoice and then receive that invoice. So we're in the customer center now. Before I jump into creating an invoice, let's go ahead and look at the list of customers that Carl already has and what we can see just by this view. And again, we got to this view by clicking on customers kind of in that center part, but you would also, if we went here and clicked here, same place, takes the same place. So Carl's got some money out there. He's got some invoices out for Dave Duncan, nice one for Lou Plumbing, and you can just go down and look at all the clients. If we wanted to see what Dave owes for, we can double click on Dave. Oh, I'm sorry, double clicking will give us Dave's information, our customer information that Carl would have put in. Oh my goodness, I just hit a button that signed us out. I thought it was taking me out of there. I'm so sorry, so let me get back in there. Hang on. We're good there. I didn't have that little blue button yesterday. I guess the online has a different one. Let's see.
Yeah, I did notice the desktop is really touchy on closing you out.
I know.
Or in the sample, not in general.
No, I know. And it got me there. Let me see. It didn't take me. There we go. Let's see if I can search it this way and get back to Carl's computer shop. Oh, I'm so sorry, folks.
Well, the link is also in the chat if you
Oh,
want
let me
to.
do that because the link I had on mine didn't work. So Q&A. Oh, chat over here.
Yeah, in the chat. Mhm.
There we go. Oh, got it. Yeah, stay away from the blue close window button. Oh, look at this. What? Hang on, folks. I'm so sorry. I wonder why it would do that. Yeah, it says, do you see that? It says the system theme settings have changed. You must restart your application and apply those settings. Really? In the last 2 minutes? You know, I'm
Will
going
it
to
help you open or restore existing?
I'm going to actually, if you give me just a minute, I'm going to look to open it in another browser
Okay.
and see if I can get past that. So Teresa, I'm sorry, I don't know if there are any questions that maybe you can hop on or.
Yeah, some people, I'm getting mixed. Some people are saying that they have difficulties opening Carl and some people are fine with it. I think maybe that, I don't know, maybe there's an overload. I don't know.
I don't know. I know I am in and out of here all the time. And of course today. So let me see. Let's see if we get it into Firefox. Are you still seeing my screen? Are you seeing now that I'm trying to get in again?
I do see you're trying to get in
Okay.
again. Yes.
All right. I didn't know if
Okay,
all right,
see, I have a,
do
how do you go back?
There we go. Okay. So let me see.
And Jen just posted a question asking how to go back a screen. Can you explain that a little bit more, what you're trying to do? Generally, you can just click on the tab that you want to go to. I'm not sure what you're.
When you want to go back a screen, so when you want to work on another open screen in QuickBooks?
I'm assuming, but I'm asking her to go ahead and if she could just give a
Okay.
little bit more information on that question.
All right. Well, it seems as though QuickBooks is not even on this new in another browser. Teresa, is there any way that you could bring it up on yours and I can take control of your screen? Or Gloria, maybe, because I know Teresa, you're monitoring the chat. So sorry. Just trying to think of another way to keep us rolling here.
Debbie, what about hitting on that no company open, the open and restore an existing company? Would you try that?
I don't know.
No, I would do open a company file, or actually I was able to open it by going to file at the top right here in the file and open previous company. Oh, nope, it's not giving it to you. It's not even.
I know, look at, I am.
How about open and restore company? Did you hit that one?
Now let's try that. Somebody said she finally got it open by just hitting open.
Oh.
But I don't know.
Oh, how much I wish I was her. No, because it's not doing it there either. Hang on, let me give a think. I used to have a test one on mine, but I don't have a test one on mine anymore.
What about just going back out and starting over again?
Well, I think that's what it wants me to do. I think it wants me to completely disconnect. And is what it seems to be telling me. All right, but now I'm just getting to the point where I'm doing the same thing again and again, and it's not working. So it's kind of silliness right there. Let me give it one more go. Come on, folks. Okay. I'm going to just see if I play along nicely, if it will do what I want it to do. No. I am at a loss. So let me see if I can put together-
maybe just go completely. Yeah, and the thing is if even if I open it, I don't know if that's gonna get you
Yeah,
what
I
you
mean,
need to
it's
do.
not. I just want to see if I can just, even if I don't get into Carl's, we can still go through, create a test company. All right,
That
let's do
doesn't,
this. Can I unshare for just a moment?
yeah,
I'm going to get on to my server and I'm going to open a new company. We're just going to go through it that way and see. So I do, please forgive me. I'm so sorry. So I'm going to stop sharing just for a couple of minutes, but
yeah,
I'll.
no problem.
We can take different kinds of questions now.
Yeah.
Teresa and I could probably field some questions if you would like to throw them in the chat.
Or in the Q&A, either way. Yeah, we'll
I'm
read
sorry,
through
in the Q&A.
yeah, we're happy to answer those. So the question about the, if you're in one customer and you want to go back to the customer center screen, there's multiple ways you can do that. Is you can either hit the home button and it brings you back and you can click the customer center screen. If you're actually on a single customer, let's see, let me describe it to you correctly. And you've double clicked on that. You just need to close that little window and that customer center screen is still right behind there. Or you can go up to the top menu and click customers and go to customer center. So there's just multiple ways to get back to that original customer. Generally on mine, on my version, I have Pro 2019. The customers are listed on the side. So even if I double click on one, I can still go double click on another one or click on another one. So it just depends on your version. And like I said, there's multiple ways to get back to that. And certainly the demo will help you play around and see how that works.
Someone asked the question or made the comment about deleting an account. If there is a dollar amount assigned to it, you cannot delete the account. You can't. And then also QuickBooks doesn't really delete, it puts it in the background.
Right.
So
it's more inactivated.
Yeah, you want to inactivate, not delete if it's got funds in it. Yes, absolutely.
Here's another question. I get confused of the terminology of chart of accounts. So chart of accounts is really, I'm going to use the word bucket. It's a place where you store the same like items so that you can keep all of your like expenses in one area, whether it be one line or one subtotal, just so that you're able to better analyze it as totals at some point. Teresa, if you want to add any better description onto that.
No, I actually typed one in an answer to that as well in the answered Q&A if they want to read that for more info. That's basically it. Somebody asked where you can see a listing of inactivated accounts. You can see that in the chart, in the actual chart of accounts. So you would go at the bottom of the chart of accounts is like a little, what do you want to call it? A toolbar, and you would just hit account and you would just select show inactive accounts. So that's actually pretty simple.
Yeah, I'm almost done. I'm just setting up and we'll.
Can you change an account name? Absolutely. Click on that account, go to that same toolbar, and then edit that account. And you can make that, and yes. And then yes, there's an option for having the numbers show or having the numbers not show. Has anyone used QuickBooks support to help set up? I have not. I do suggest that if there is any doubt that you have an accountant review your chart of accounts before you get in too deep. I cannot stress that enough to make sure that you're putting things in the right buckets or folders. I think that's an excellent option. I have not used the support, so I can't answer to that.
All right, well, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. I logged into another server in the office that I was able to go and just create a blank one. So it looks like we're going to start from scratch. I do want to make sure, though, that it will show that screen because it's actually not my screen in front of me. So we're going to cross our fingers on that. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share again, and I'll just need you folks to tell me if I was successful on that. There we go. How'd I do?
It's there.
Woo! All right, so here we are. Sorry, we're going to jump right back in. This desktop looks a little bit different than the one we saw before. I talked earlier about how that had a lot going on with a lot of icons. This is what it looks like when you set up a new account. This is just a brand new account that I just set up, and then you can add to what's here. These are kind of basically what everyone's going to need. So we're going to go right back to where we were talking about customers. We're going to go ahead and set up a customer. Now, the downside of this is we don't have any data that we can review, but that's okay because we can talk through it. So when we get here, we're going to add a new customer, and we can do that by going here, new customer. And we're going to go ahead. I'm giving a salute to my hometown this week by putting Denville Dairy as our customer. And we can go ahead and put in the company name. We can put in the owner of the company. We wanted to do that. Put in the address. We won't keep Jane's name there, but we'll do. And I do encourage you, when you get new customers, really fill in all this information. You only have to do it once, and then you're going to have it. And it's going to be very handy to you time and time again. So if you wanted to put in the phone number, I won't take the time now, but I would encourage you, put in the phone number, put in the email. You've got everything. If it's something that you're going to ship, you can, I think, ship to same address. There we go. You can do that. Take a look at the tabs. We talked about going through the preferences and looking what's there. So let's take a look at here. Is there any information you want to include about this customer? How they like to get their email? Or their invoice? Do they want to have it emailed? Would they rather have it postal mailed? Preferred payment method. If they pay you, if you accept credit cards, you can reserve that information there. You can put in what if they're on a tax in a certain area. You can go ahead and add in, we don't have any taxes in, but you would be able to select that. Any different additional information or any specific job information. And when we look at that, here we go. Now we've got our first customer here. What I like too is, this is not in QuickBooks Online. This is a feature of Desktop that I really like, is you can actually keep information here. We're going to create an invoice, and that's going to show up here, and we'll see that. But you also can put in some additional contact information. And these are just free type screens. To-dos, if there are certain things you want to remember to do for this client. So then it kind of becomes like your reminder system. So there are things that you want to do. If you want to put in some notes, had a conversation with the customer on this day. We talked about this. This happens to be where I put things when I do collections for people. And I say, oh, spoke with client on this day, and I can put in all the details related to that conversation. That's tends to be what I put under notes. And then there's the send email tab as well. But let's go back to our transaction. So Denville Dairy has yet to use Carl's services. Well, it's not Carl anymore. We're going to pretend. We're going to go ahead and we can create an estimate, an invoice, sales receipt. If you wanted to create a statement charge, receive payments when they pay, or issue a credit memo. So let's see, this is going to be a little bit off for us because we don't have services in here, but we're going to do our best. Invoice number, you can decide your starting invoice number. If you're someone who invoices, I tend to go by year. So if I do 2020-001, the next invoice I create will be 2020-002, and so on. So you can decide your kickoff point for this. We don't have any items here, but we're going to just add it because QuickBooks, like we have to be for this presentation, is pretty flexible. It's going to let me add my service type right here. Now you saw us do it earlier, in the item list, but I can go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to add my service. It's a service, and I liked that he does the diagnostic service. We're going to have him do that. It's not a sub item, and the rate is $95 an hour. And we're going to map this. I'm going to have to put this because we don't have multiple income accounts. We're going to go ahead and put it into our merchandise sales account. So very much like what we had done before. So you can kind of ad hoc. So if you're putting an invoice in and you're, oh shoot, this is a new service or a new item, you can go ahead and add it there. And we're going to see it. It's going to show up there. And it took 2.5 hours to do that full diagnostic. So There we go. So we have our billable rate. It's a service, so it's not taxed. So if we look, this is what's going to go out on the invoice. This can be customized. This is the Intuit kind of the default invoice. You can add other things to it. And certainly when you get into it, I would encourage you to add your logo, make it yours, add your address, contact information, website. You can go ahead and do all of that in the formatting area. We don't have time to get into that today. If you don't need a PO number, you can go ahead and get rid of that. And we could also default to terms. We like to get paid in 15 days. We'll give, the dairy a little bit of time, but we need to get paid. When it looks like what you want, go ahead, save and close. And now we have our list here. We see we've got an invoice here, and now we've got a client, and we see that we've got a balance. So very much like what we saw before. So if we were to go back, this is what I was trying to describe to you before that the other system wasn't showing, which is yet another way. We have customer center, vendor center, so like we had seen before. And we go back to our home screen, and a couple days pass and we've got payment from Denville Dairy. So let's go ahead and receive this invoice and go take a look at it. So we have a check. We're going to pretend Carl or our client paid us by check. We bring up our invoice and we're going to go ahead and receive payment. We do always want to confirm. Now, QuickBooks will assume that the payment you got was for the exact amount of the invoice. And in most cases, that will most likely be the case. But there might be a time where actually the check they wrote out, they made a mistake. Instead of $237.50, they make it out for $273.50. So always, but always look at the payment you have and just make sure it matches, because when it doesn't, it's a little bit of a thing to go back and untangle that. You can specify how he paid, cash, check, or credit, the date on which they paid. It'll default to today's date, but you can put in whatever date. Maybe you got the check yesterday and you just didn't have a chance to put it in. I do encourage you to always put the check number. That becomes a really important reference number for you later when Denville Dairy has lots more charges and you want to go back because there's a question about how something was paid. You can always look and say, oh, no, that was that check 885. We know what that was for. And we can see here now, it's automatically checked. It's got us down with a zero balance. And we're good. So we're going to go ahead and close. And now we can see our invoice was paid and the date. If you wanted to see the history of when it was paid, you could see when the invoice was created and when it was paid. So a little bit more info for you there. And then go ahead and save and close. And we'll see that now we've got counts, here's the invoice, here's the payment. I'm also going to change our view here a little bit. Let me see. And what I'm going to do, this list here, this drop down is going to affect how we look at it. Because this is great. I can see the invoice and I can see the payment, and the invoice was for $237.50 and the payment was as well. Yay. It doesn't tell me what I like to know. I actually have some other views that I think are a little bit more helpful. This will just show me invoice, but this is what I like. I like to be able to see that invoice does not have an open balance. We've got our invoice, we have our payment, and we're at zero. So I do tend to play with these because there are different times I want to see different things. But actually it's the balance detail is the one that I like to go to. Again, click around and see. So we've got our payment, we've got our $237.50. Now, when we go back here, much like you may have remembered from when we're at Carl's, we're showing one under record deposit. When you receive against an invoice, it will go into what's called undeposited funds, because you probably don't go to get one check and go to the bank and get the next check and go to the bank. You probably maybe get a couple of checks in a day or over a couple of period days. You might go to the bank with several checks. So what we want to do is make sure that the register in QuickBooks matches the deposit on your bank statement. So if you go to the bank and the checks total $8,700, that's going to show up on your bank statement. You want to be able to know in QuickBooks, you can group those deposits together. Otherwise, you're going to say, which of these deposits adds up to that? And you're going to be doing a lot of math to try to figure it out. A little tough to explain that, I think, but when it happens, you'll know. So now what we want to do is say, we're going to create a bank account. So we're going to call this checking. And there we go. So let me jump out. So because we didn't have a bank account, we had to correct one. We had to create one. So now we're going to go back and we've got our deposit, and here it is. You may have several deposits. This deposit, we're just putting in one check. But this is where I was talking. If you had 3 or 4 checks that you're putting in at once, you would check them all because you want this to match that deposit slip from the bank. So then it's going to make it easier when it's time to reconcile. And we'll say, yep, we want it to go into checking. We could change it if we had a savings account. We could add a savings and say, no, this one actually I didn't put into checking, I put into savings. the date you actually deposited it. So this is different than maybe the date they gave it to you. I would encourage you to always check this. This sometimes will default to something completely different. So always check that. And we're gonna say, yep, we're putting our check from Dental Dairy, we're putting it right into the bank. And now it's not showing. So now we know that we finished that loop. We got payment, we saved it in QuickBooks, we received it against the invoice, it's gone to the bank, and now it's going to show on our check register, and that circle of invoice payment record is done. So let's go ahead and look at that check register. And let me open it up. And we see there it is. Here's our deposit. It doesn't put who it's from. Deposits we don't typically put who the deposit was from. When it's an expense we do, but not when it's a deposit. So we see our money there. If I wanted to go back and look at the details, you can click here and say, oh, right. That's what that was. And we've got that. So that, any questions on creating the customer invoice, receiving the invoice, and going ahead and putting that into the bank?
I do not have questions related to that, but I'm going to go ahead and answer one out loud just to save some typing for myself. Somebody asked, how do you create a new bank account? You just simply want to go to the chart of accounts, and on the chart of accounts toolbar, you would just hit the account. At the very bottom, account, and just hit new and just select bank.
Yep. And the same whether it's credit card, anything like that. But yeah, so you can do a bank account just like that. Name it what makes sense. I do encourage if you are going to do it, do something that shows the last 4 digits of that account number. It just makes it a little bit easier, a little cleaner too, when if you end up having multiple accounts, that you're confident in the one that you're putting the money in is the right one. And there we go. So then now we have 2 checking accounts. We've got the one with the deposit and the one without. So yeah. What I'd like to do is talk about vendors and how to enter vendors. So.
Oh, I do have an invoice question. When you make your invoice, does your product automatically deduct from the inventory list?
Yes, if you put it in properly. So if you were to record it and pull from that, unfortunately, I can't show you that. Yes, that will track your inventory for you. That will show, what was taken out.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. So vendor center is going to look very familiar to our customer center, and the setup is going to be similar as well. So I'm going to set up a new vendor, and we're going to put in a bill. So I'm going to add vendor, and this is going to be a printing company. And I have to say, I don't know why you have to do it twice, but you do. And we'll put in the information we have on Ben. We'll skip.
Well, I think you do it twice. The top name is the vendor name is it's going to show in your vendor listing. So you want to use a name that you're going to remember. And then the company name is what actually prints into the invoices.
See, thank you. Look at that. And I know I do put in the individual name if it's not, if it's a company, I do that. And we put the address down here. So this is the basic information. This is a lot like what we saw for the customer center. There are a couple of different things though for the vendor. We're going to treat it a little bit differently. We're going to again look at these tabs. They all mean something. So payment center, payment settings, this would be your account number with Ben. So if he's assigned you account number, any payment terms, Ben likes to be paid in 30 days. Ben's printing company, here we go. Teresa there, it's going to print on the check. Tax settings. We talked about this yesterday too. We're near the very end of the year. And as business owners, many people know, and if you don't, I do encourage you to look into this, need to send 1099s by January 31st of the following year for anyone you paid what's considered non-employee compensation to last year. This year, actually, the 1099s are due February 1st because January 31st is a weekend. So they're due on February 1st. So what we need to do is in advance, when you're going to pay a vendor, say, before I pay you, I need you to send me your W-9. And the W-9, if you're familiar with, you probably have one as a business owner too, is what lists all the information that you would need to include on that 1099 form. The easiest time to get that W-9 from a vendor is before you pay them, because it's a lot easier when you say, hey, I'd like to pay you that check, but before I do, can you shoot me a W-9? Than saying in January, hey, I'd like to report your income to the federal government. Do you have a second out of your busy day to send me a W-9 so I can do that? It's a little tougher sell at that point. even if it's not a vendor that you've spent or that you have paid $600 or more, which is what it is for 1099. It's anyone you've paid non-employee compensation, 600 or more, not more than 600, 600 or more. Get the W-9 anyway, because maybe this bill's only 150, but maybe the next one's going to be 600 and you're going to exceed that threshold. When you have it, you want to check it here because you're going to be running a report in January that lets you know who gets 1099s, and you can go ahead and put their tax ID here. And you can go ahead and save it. That's a really important step. I do encourage you every time you have a new vendor to go ahead and do that. Any account settings or any additional information that you want to put in there. And now we have a vendor. We don't have any bills to pay him yet, but that'll change. But we have a vendor. And again, like the customer list, you'll see all your vendors here. The customer list in Carl's showed us who owes us money. Your vendor list will show who you owe money to. So let's go back and let's put in a bill. We had Ben sent us a bill. He did some printing work for us. And we're going to go ahead and enter his bill. And this is going to help us track what's payable. Because if Ben sends us a bill and the bill's not due for 30 days and money's a little tight because we're a new business and we've got some tight cash flow, you don't necessarily need to pay Ben right now. You've got 30 days. You might need that cash for something right now, but you want to log in there that you have this liability. He did provide a service. You do need to pay the bill. It's smart to put it into QuickBooks. So look at that. I start to type Ben and he comes up. I would put the date on his invoice, not today's date, because it's going to help us. It's going to measure out for us the 30-day window. So we want to put the date of the invoice and maybe put the invoice number. Again, kind of like the check number. It's nice to have the invoice number. It's a great referral, you know, if we need to go back. And it's $650. The bill is due on 12/13 because QuickBooks did the math for us there. We know it's net 30. We might put it here. We might, you know, say, oh, this is for business cards, just so that we remember what it was for. And if it's for business cards, it's going to go to our advertising budget or advertising account. So there we have advertising is there. Now that when we look at the chart of accounts, this is the chart of accounts QuickBooks put in for me, because you may remember this company didn't exist half an hour ago. So we'll show you that too. It really sets you up with a very basic but good chart of accounts. And we can say business cards again. If this was related to anything for a customer job, if Ben did printing that I had to bill forward to a customer, maybe, you know, he was, you know, Ben did some labels that a customer wanted to put on all their company computers. And, you know, I could go ahead and I could tag this to a customer job and I could actually make it billable and it would show up on their next invoice. So you have that option. You don't need to do it. So we're going to go ahead and save and close. We have our invoice there. And now it's in there. If we were to look and say, you know, do we have any bills to pay? Oh, we do. There we go. We've got to pay Ben. We've got 30 days. This will list all your payables. So again, a great way to know who you owe money to, how much, and when. So you wouldn't do that for certain expenses. You go to Staples and you pick up some copy paper. That just goes right in as an expense. But when you've got somebody who's invoicing you and you've got a timeline there to pay them, you want to go ahead and put that in as a bill. Any questions on the vendors?
Okay, somebody asked me to clarify a vendor. I did type an answer into the Q&A, if anyone would like to read on that. And you had said entering expense directly. You could actually put those expenses directly in through the check register. Mm-hmm. If it's if something like what you were saying.
Yep. So if let's do, we went to Staples and we have a receipt and we want to go ahead and put that in there. We're not going to number it because it wasn't a check. You know, we paid maybe with the company, you know, debit card or, you know, not cash. We don't want to get into cash. And I put in Staples as my vendor. Now it's going to know that it doesn't know Staples. So it's going to say, oh, would you like to quick add or would you like to set up? If it's something like Staples, I'm going to do a quick add. I'm not going to put in the address and the phone number and the email address. This is a quick vendor. This is not the kind of vendor I send a 1099 to. Wasn't non-employee compensation. It was some copy paper, office supplies. This one, I could do a quick add. If it was something I wanted to do and put in that detail, that would be setup. So if we look at setup, it will bring us, again, we saw the screen before we filled this out for Ben's printing. So it would take me here. And again, if it's, you know, anyone other than kind of a retail vendor, I would fill that out. And Staples isn't on the list. Oh, I never did my quick add vendor. There we go. And now we're good to go. We can keep moving. Now Staples is in there. Next time I go ahead and do that, it's going to already be there for me. And let's go ahead and $100. Office supplies, again, that's an account that it filled in automatically for me. And I could put a memo here if I wanted to put a memo again just for myself, and then I would go ahead and record. And that would be, you know, your trips for office supplies or anything where you've got a receipt and you're entering a receipt as opposed to an invoice. So we've got that. What I'd like to do is now talk about the bank a little bit, because now we know we saw the check register, and it gives me an option which check register do I want to go into. And we can take a look at this. So we've got some money coming in, we've got some money going out. When it's time to reconcile, as we will want to reconcile all accounts, one of the things that makes life a little bit easier is to have the information sync right from the bank. So we can key in everything like we just did. We wouldn't have changed anything in the way we receive the invoices. That's how we receive invoices. But there are other times there's a lot of expenses. So maybe, you know, you go to Staples and you have to hit up Home Depot for something else and you've got a number of expenses. You don't necessarily have to key them all in. What we would do is we would go and we would set up the bank feed, which means we can link from the bank to QuickBooks, and it's going to go ahead and put in all the transactions for a time period. So it's magical and it's wonderful. Let's see if I can show you how to do that. So we're going to go to the banking tab. And again, this is some of the things we see in this dropdown, but we also see over here. So much like the customer, the vendor center, we've got a couple of ways to get there. But let's go ahead and set up our bank feed. When you do this, you're going to want, yeah, that's okay. You're going to want to have your bank information in front of you. You're also going to want to have your login for your bank and your password. So be prepared with everything. We're not actually going to be able to connect this up, but what you would put here is your bank. You choose it from the Bank of America, whatever your bank is, and it would prompt you through. Let's see how far we can get. So I can show you this. And it's going to tell us we're a few steps away. Let's make sure we've got, are you enrolled in the right? So you can follow this setup, and this is where it would take us. So regardless of your bank, it will take you to your sign-on ID and your passcode for that bank. And then you're going to be able to take you to a point where you can choose and say, okay, I want that bank account to map to this bank account in QuickBooks. And when it does that, it will then, when you go into your bank account, there's a button that you can click. We don't have it because we're not set up for it. That just says download. And it's going to go ahead and import all those transactions that happened at the bank. And then rather than keying them in your check register like we just did, you're going to be able to go to a bank feed window, and it's already going to have some of that information in there. It's going to have the date. It's going to have the expense, the vendor, you know, where it came from, and it's going to have the amount, whether it was a deposit, whether it was a payment, and then you can go ahead and put that into QuickBooks, and it's going to pick up the pace. It's going to be nice. And it's also, the nice thing is when it comes from the bank, it's going to match the statement. So when you do the reconciliation, you know, your dates and your numbers are good, and it's going to make that process go a bit faster. While we're talking about banking, I do want to mention reconciling. If you don't reconcile your account now, I do encourage you to do that on a monthly basis. The reason it's done monthly, it matches the length of the statement. You know, you're generally 30 days. Many banks will go from the first of the month to the last of the month, not all. Sometimes they straddle the months a little bit. You can also recommend or request that you have the time period changed to first of the month, last of the month. I do think it's easier. Same with your credit card. If you're going to be reconciling your credit card in QuickBooks, credit cards almost never have a first of the month, end of the month date. It's usually mid-month to mid-month, but you can go ahead and request that. It's nice to have your bank accounts and your credit cards have the same time frame. That way, when you go to reconcile, you can do both at one time, you know, in the same sitting, and then you're good to move on. The reason we reconcile is we would like to make sure that everything at the bank matches what we have in QuickBooks. The bank is always the official record. So if you've got something in QuickBooks and the bank doesn't have it listed on their statement, or when you log in and you look at the online banking, chances are you did something wrong. It's rare that it's the bank's fault, but this is why we do the reconciliation. So let's check. I have seen mistakes at the bank, so it's not impossible. But the reason we want to do it monthly is because the sooner any mistakes are identified, whether it's an oversight in your QuickBooks or whether it's a mistake at the bank, the easier it is going to recall what actually happened, and the faster it is going to be to fix. So if you see that you've got in QuickBooks, you put in a deposit from a client of $2,200 and the bank doesn't have it, that's a red flag right there. And that's one of the things that quickly goes to the top of the priority list. I need to check on this right now. Where did my $2,200 go? So you want to investigate it. It might be, oh shoot, I deposited into my savings account, not my checking. this is when you find that out. And you might go to the bank and say, I've got my deposit slip of my $2,200 and I'm not seeing it. Maybe there was a mistake on their part. The sooner you do the reconciliation, the better off you're going to be if there's any issue. It's also a great time when you do the reconciliation to see who hasn't cashed checks. Now's a good time of year to do that too, to say, wait a second, I wrote out 2 checks to this vendor and they've never been cashed. You want to get that off your books. You want to clear that. You want to move on, because at that point, you still owe them that money. They haven't collected payment. And I will give an example. Yesterday, I was working with a vendor for a client of mine, and I looked at one of her vendors, 4 checks. Like, all right, well, now we've got 4. This is kind of piling up. And I sent an email, hey, I've noticed you haven't cashed these checks. Have you not been getting them? Do you need me to reissue them? Let's get this cleared up off our books. Reconciliation will help you do that as well. So it's a way to keep your account matching the bank. And that's the only way, if you do it on a regular basis, to know that the account balance you show in QuickBooks is actually a good balance. And that's what you're operating off. Because you don't want to run your business out of your bank balance, which I know lots and lots of people do. It's not the best way to do it. You want to be able to run it out of your QuickBooks, because QuickBooks knows what the bank doesn't know. So if you wrote some checks and they haven't been cleared, you still need to know that in QuickBooks that at any point those checks can come in and you better have that money there. If you're operating off your bank balance, you could easily be missing things. So the reconciliation process, that's my little speech there as to why we do that. So any questions on how the reconciliation process goes?
I do not have a question on that currently, but could you open for me, create an invoice for a moment?
Mm-hmm. Where are we? Over here. Yep.
Somebody asked how you might attach a receipt scan, and it's right there. I attach file.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do that.
Yeah. Let me see. Is there anything else here we want to notice?
I use Memorize. Well, maybe we don't want to go into that. Never mind.
Oh, yeah, to memorize. I know there's so many tips and tricks, and to not overload and to not use all the time. But there are, again, like I say, it's so nice to look at this and to figure it out. And if you can get into the Carls and go back, if you're in there, which they've locked me out, play with some of these. So you don't necessarily have to play with them in your own environment. If you want to put money in and see what happens if I do this, go back into the QuickBooks and play with it there, so you can get a comfort level with it before you bring it into your own books.
And I would suggest that with that Memorize, you can do that with bills and invoices. And as you get further into QuickBooks, look it up on YouTube.
Yeah, you can also do it with reports, memorized reports, memorized journal entries. There are a lot of memorized things, payroll entries, things like that. That will be very helpful. Okay, so speaking of reports, let's head over to Report Center. And actually, reports are from up here. So we have a drop down. Actually, don't go to Report Center. What does it look like? Oh, yeah. Okay. So this is another way you can see reports and kind of divided by how you use them. Memorized reports. You can set favorite reports, recent. So there's some different things. Because QuickBooks has lots of different ways, my way is usually just to go here and I do the drop down as opposed to the Report Center. So you can do what works best for you. So if we take a look at these, and if I'll give you a minute because I don't want to jump through too quickly because there's a lot going on here. We're going to go into the company and financial. We'll also take a look at customers and receivables. You can look at sales reports. If you track time and jobs in QuickBooks, there's a Report Center for that as well. Who do you owe money to? So we'll hit on some of these. We won't have time to go through all of them. You can set up a budget in QuickBooks. You can measure budget against actual. So you can do lots of things there too. But let's just take a look at the financial reports to start. So the profit and loss report, also called the income statement. And there are different ways you can look at it in detail. So you can see, kind of the breakdown. We're just going to look at the summary. We have very little in there to look at, but you can look if you wanted to look at the breakdown. So you can look at kind of slice and dice it a lot of different ways. Income by customer summary, there's a lot of reports available here, but let's just stick with the profit and loss. We're going to go take a look at what we have here. We've got a little bit going on that we can show you. Now, this is what I talked about before. So this is the toggle. It's set to accrual. That's the default. I'm going to go ahead and change it to cash. I do not expect it's going to change. No, it's not going to change mine much at all. But it did change a little. So let me show you something. Okay. Yep. So if we look here and we look at it on the accrual side, doesn't change. We have our money coming in. our advertising promotion. If you remember, that's what we're paying Ben's printing, and then the office supplies. And that all happened. I'm going to actually change this to, let's do the current month. Oh, this month to date is the current month. So this is what we have so far for the month. If I change it to cash, what disappears? Ben. Right? We've got it on the accrual. We don't have it on the cash. And the reason is our bill for Ben isn't due until December. It's not going to show up on a November balance sheet because it's a payable with the due date in December. So that's the accrual piece. The cash is going to report what's actually happened. And what has actually happened so far is that we got the deposit from, or we got the payment from Denville Dairy, and we had the office supplies expense that actually happened in this time period. So we're going to look at the cash report, a little bit of an intro to accrual versus cash. And if you don't know what you are or what you should be, definitely touch base with your CPA. They will be able to help you out with that. So here we look and we can see that for this time period, how much money came in, how much it costs to earn that money, and what is the net income. Typically, you know, we'll see a whole lot more than that, but this is what we have so far. And that's the profit and loss. So again, reports, company financial profit and loss. The profit and loss is going to tell you all the money coming in, all the money going out, and your net income at the bottom. This is a report you would want to look at after you've done your reconciling for the month. And then when you've also have addressed maybe any of those outstanding entries that didn't come in through the reconciliation yet, just so you can kind of get that picture. And it's great to look at your profit and loss. You can look at it by month. So look at, you know, the entire month. You can look at it by quarter. You can look at it by how am I doing this half of the year? You can do a comparison. How did I do November this year versus November last year? How did quarter one go versus quarter two? So it will allow you to look at that information in a lot of different ways that will help you to understand your business even better. So that's the money coming in and out. But let's talk about the balance sheet. The balance sheet is going to tell a whole different story because it's focusing on something else. So the balance sheet, we don't have a lot here to talk about, but we've got some. The balance sheet will tell you as of this day, whatever day you put in here, you can put it, you know, maybe you want to check out what your balance sheet was on halfway through the year on June 30th. But as of whatever date you put in there, it's going to tell you what QuickBooks is showing. So as of today, it's showing that there's $137.50 in the checking account. Great, we know that to be true. If there were multiple accounts that had money in it, it would show all the checking accounts, any of the asset accounts, if we look here. The fixed assets, if there was some machinery, it would show there as well if we recorded that in QuickBooks. So this is telling you the value of your company. So it's telling you every asset that you have, everything, a fixed asset, a cash asset is going to go ahead and be there. It's also going to tell you on the liability side, what do you owe currently? Because maybe you've got all these assets, but you got to remember you still owe money. It might be a loan. If you have a credit card, the credit card would show here. This is the accounts payable because we owe Ben some money. So anything, any liabilities, payroll tax liability, sales tax liability, all those sorts of things will show in this liability section. And it will give you that snapshot. Okay, this is how much I have in assets. This is how much I have in liabilities. And there went my screen.
Yep.
Oi, folks, I am so sorry.
I did get a question about the balance sheet. Would that show your property value?
If you put it in, if it's property owned by the business and you put that in QuickBooks, it will show you your property value. So it's really going to show you what you put in there. So if that's something you put in, then that's something you'll see. I'm going to see if I can try my hand back at this. Boy. So I don't know. I might be out of ideas. I'm glad we got to cover. At least we got through reports.
Yeah, we did.
Boy, I think the QuickBooks gods are not smiling on me today. So I'm not sure, Gloria and Teresa, we could do some more questions. Yeah, see, now it's even going to close the program on me.
Let's concentrate on questions, please.
Yep.
Please, into chat, into Q&A, any questions that we can address. Now would be the time to put those in.
Well, they put it in. I thought I would put up, where can I get QuickBooks training? There's a lot of free training out there, and I can, really encourage you to find it. You can search on, Intuit, who wants QuickBooks, Intuit, QuickBooks support for training, find some of that. And I know Teresa and Gloria know I'm such a fan of lynda.com, which is an online training database. You can see top trainings of all sorts of things on lynda.com. A lot of public libraries will have free access. It's a subscription program. I know my library, my town library, has lynda.com. and you can go ahead and look up QuickBooks training videos. They're extremely well done. They have quizzes, which I really like. So when you learn a section, you can take a quiz and really reinforce what you learned, and you can go back at any time. You don't have to do it all in one sitting. It will save your login so you can go back and revisit. Of course, YouTube, what doesn't it have? There are sometimes local adult ed programs where you can take a QuickBooks class. If you're having a specific issue with QuickBooks, you can go ahead, just Google that issue, how to issue a credit. If a client returns a product or overpays, or, you need to issue a credit, how to do that. The bookstores, Barnes & Noble, Amazon will have user manuals. QuickBooks for Dummies, let me tell you, it has a place. It's a resource. It's a great thing to have on hand, just in case if you're not familiar, with QuickBooks. It also has a great index. So you can go ahead and look up that specific problem or issue, and it will tell you where to go to find that. So that's also a great thing. And of course, SCORE.
Great. I am actually going to launch our poll. We do have some questions. We please answer them. This is our first attempt at doing the QuickBooks seminar online. And then I do have some questions that were a question that was posted that I'm going to ask you. If you're using cash basis financials, how do you modify credit card uploads to not post entries into prior months?
Well, if you're doing your credit card uploads on a regular basis, it's going to put it in where it belongs. So I'm not entirely sure I'm understanding the question, because the credit card uploaded, it's happened when it happened. You wouldn't close the month until you have everything in there. So maybe I'm not fully understanding the question.
Yeah, I if they want to put further information in the chat, but yeah, what you said is true.
Okay.
The credit card happened in the month that it happens, and that's the date that it happens. So that's when it has to be posted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless they're talking about the payment of the credit card.
Again, the payments happen when they happen. That wouldn't impact the accrual piece at all, because you're really just putting in what you wouldn't want to do if you are on accrual bugs. You wouldn't want to post anything after you've closed the month. You wouldn't necessarily want to do that if you're on cash books either, but you wouldn't want to go back and change anything, certainly. So, it's a little bit of a different art with the accrual, but once you get your head in that space, it's not difficult at all, but it's a little bit different. But I don't see how the credit cards actually come into play on that one.
Okay.
So
I don't see any other questions that have been posted. Again, if you can, here we got it. When I uploaded the credit card activity, it posted individual transaction on the date of the credit card. However, the credit card itself was paid in the current period. Right. That's correct.
Yep, I think that's right.
That's how it's supposed to be.
And I'm glad that person mentioned that, because I did talk about syncing the bank. You can, and that's what they're referring to. You can also sync the credit card. If once in a while there's an issue with the sync, what you can also do is go to your credit card or bank, and it will allow you to download the transactions in a QuickBooks file. And even though it's QuickBooks Desktop, it's called a QBO file. And then you can upload it into QuickBooks Desktop. So if the sync with the bank isn't working for whatever reason, you can go ahead and get that those transactions in another way. So you don't have to key them all in.
Can I upload invoice detail for multiple lines of inventory?
Can you upload invoice detail from multiple
lines of inventory?
I do not know the answer to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I'm not sure what they're asking.
Yeah.
Okay. If Jen, you want to clarify, or maybe reach out to us via email. Deb, can you put your contact? Did you want to put your contact slide up so that everyone can see your information?
Yeah. And I do have, for anyone who wants to put their email address in the chat, I do have my top 10 list of what you need to do before the close of the year. It's good timing. So if you'd like that, if you want to provide your email address, Teresa will get that to me, and I'll go ahead and forward that to you. So there's a nice little handy checklist as we come up on December 31st. Because really, now is the time to start thinking about closing this year and starting next year.
Yes, get your email into that chat now, And yeah, she'll send you that information
Yep.
and we'll capture that. She clarified, she wants to know, she said her supplier invoices with many line items, can that be uploaded without being keyed in?
You know what? Let me check that out and let you know. Supplier invoices with many line items. And did they send it to you in an Excel spreadsheet? Or you mean like depends on what the invoice is like. If it's formatted, I would think you would be able to upload that, but it may depend on if it's formatted in an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, I know that there's a way to take an Excel spreadsheet and then key the items to match into certain parts of QuickBooks.
Yeah.
And that is something you're definitely going to want to watch a tutorial on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
right.
not something we can just answer straight out here. Yeah.
So, and that's how you'd have to get it from your supplier, or you'd have to get it into Excel format so that you could do that. You wouldn't be able to, typically, if they're sending you an invoice that's PDF format or printed, send you a hard copy, that would be keying in. Or keying into a spreadsheet and then uploading from the spreadsheet.
Yeah, she says she can download it. So yes, as long as you can
Good.
download it into an Excel, then that's what you would want to do. Okay.
Exactly.
And she said some of them are cost of goods as well.
Yeah, play with it a little bit and check it out. Make sure you're really comfortable before you do it. You don't want to put anything in there that just didn't hit the right way that you then have to pull out, which could be a little time consuming. So just be really comfortable with your process before you do it. QuickBooks does offer support, especially if you have a newer release. You can go ahead and reach out to them. They have the help button that's right on the main screen, but also you can reach out to them as well.
We can stay on for a few more minutes, but I did want to thank everybody because I know people are leaving us. And I wanted to thank you all for joining us from SCORE and from Deborah. And we hope to have you come join us again at another webinar, or again, reach out to SCORE for a counselor to help you specifically.
Yes.
Okay.
No more questions?
I haven't seen any. I have been capturing emails for those that want the things to do before the end of the year.
And let me just look at my checklist. Is there anything else that I can talk about that we didn't get to cover? So no, but I do thank everybody for sticking with us through the tech difficulties. Of course, never happened before, but today was the day that it seemed to be given a hard time. So I apologize for that.
Somebody asked about the Q&A portion. The chat, any replies that were in chat do not come through on the recording. I do believe I can get a complete report for the Q&A replies. And if I can do that, I will put a link to a Google Doc so that you guys can see those answers. Okay, I think that covers everything.
All right. Well, thanks everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your day.